Was he always up for a theme song, or did you happen to say like, I mean, he knew what he was doing, but like, Paul, you don't have the rights to be playing all these tracks and stuff, or were you just if he needs me, I'm here, sort of thing?
Mm, One of the things that drew me to ECW was their use of commercial music, like Alice
Oh,
in
God.
Chains and Metallica. But Vince McMahon, WWF at the time, would not pay for the rights to use the music these guys were using.
Smart move, though. It is. Yeah.
He needed somebody to create sound alikes, clones, so to
Yep.
speak. So he reached out to me. And this was 4 days before the Manhattan Center. So I had to scramble to find a studio, find musicians. That was one of the Slash Tones hiatus periods when I said, I don't want to deal with this. This is nonsense. I'm done. And I'd kind of semi retired, like for the 15th time in 4 years. And I lucked out. I found two friends of mine, both of which were in Ace Frehley's solo band, Frehley's Comet. I got Richie Scarlett and Steve Budgie. There was another dude whose name I believe was Andy Bean. I don't really remember any other band other than Soul Crush that he played with.
Okay.
And the producer was a dude named Eddie Wall, who has since produced El Nino, Primer 55, a ton of bands, has got a ridiculous amount of Emmys for music he's created for television. And we all went into Eddie's studio up in Westchester, which was actually the garage of his parents' house. And in literally 24 hours, I left my house 9 a.m. on a Saturday, got home 9 a.m. Sunday. And we spent 24 hours coming up with, something for Tommy Dreamer, something for Sandman, something for Taz, and one other song that was just cheesy, generic 80s metal.
Got you. So is Paul did Paul have any insight like, hey, I kind of want this for this guy, or was he just like, go whip me up some stuff and whatever, or did he need to see kind of proofs as you were going?
Well, when he called me, the way he explained it when he called me up was weird because, like I said, I wasn't really paying that much attention. He goes, you know how in WCW, Chris Jericho comes out to Nirvana, but it's not Nirvana? And I'm like, no, I don't. It's like, well, what about when Diamond Dallas Page comes out to Soundgarden, but it's not Soundgarden? I said, no, I really don't know what you mean.
Uh-huh.
And he explained the situation. I said, well, give me some time. I went to a record store, which still existed in Manhattan, and I bought the 2 or 3 wrestling CDs that were available at the time. I went back to my office. I listened to them. I called him up. I said, dude, this is not music. This is crap. It's only a 2-part song. There's no bridge. There's no hook. It's nonsense. Is this what you want? And he goes, well, not necessarily crap, but yeah, can you do something like that? I said, all right, let me make some phone calls. And that's when I found Budgie and Richie Scarlett. And it just coincidentally happened that the only day everybody was available was the Saturday before the Manhattan Center, and we did the 24-hour session. And that Monday, I went to the Manhattan Center with DAT tapes because we didn't even have CD burners yet. Those hadn't really become that popular yet.
Yep.
And to get a CD burnt cost you $45 a CD back then.
I remember. Yeah.
Okay. So I went there with DAT tapes at like 1 p.m. just to get a sound check because I figured they would need to be EQ'd. When you're in the studio 24 hours, your ears kind of go numb. So there's a lot of stuff you miss when you're doing.
You have to have a break. It's like being a movie editor. You got to walk away, come back with a fresh set of eyes. Same thing, fresh set of ears for this. Yep.
Yeah, a lot of the times the projects I would do, we would finish all principal recording, and then we would take a week off before mixing. Let your ears, go back to normal.
Yep.
Needless to say, they wouldn't give me a sound check. So I went to catering. I ate whatever food was in front of me. It pissed them off because we weren't supposed to eat from WWF's catering. I ended up playing gin rummy with The Undertaker and a couple of other people that I met for the first time for a couple hours. And then I never got the sound check. The first time I heard the songs through the loudspeaker was during the live segment on live TV. I was in the audience at the time, and I'm like, all right, that's not so bad. But then I started hearing like a couple of out of tune parts, a few guitar. I kind of knew that there were mistakes when we finished it, but I figured it was going to be one and done.
Yeah.
They would play them once. People would be screaming. The announcers would be talking, would be background shit. Nobody would notice. So the Manhattan Center is over and done with. I figure, okay, I'm back to being retired. About a week or so later, Paul calls me up and tells me Taz really liked what I did and he wanted to use it full time. That's when I had to put the brakes and say, no, dude, I can't let that happen. It has to be fixed. There's some bad guitars on there. Some bass lines are a little out of tune. I have to go back into the studio and make it something that if you're going to be using it on a weekly basis, I don't want people hearing something that sounds like shit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Richie Scarlett, who did the original work, when I called him up, was leaving the very next day to go out on tour with Sebastian Bach. Sebastian had left Skid Row and was doing a solo thing. So I brought in Roderick Cohn, who was my guitar player in the Slash Tones.
Coolness.
And
as the song was, as Paul we were saying, it's a takeoff, but it was Takeoff a War Machine from
the first one, absolutely.
Yeah.
It didn't really become a totally original song until the second version, the Survive If I Let You.
Yeah.
We kept the riff that we changed from the first version into the second. The riffs that we changed from the original to be what it was in the first Taz song, that's all we kept in the second one. But we also changed the tuning. I think the first one was a half step down in E flat, and this one was just an E.